first conspiracy is, one that we've already kind of alluded to here, the reverse engineering of alien spacecraft. So like Joe mentioned earlier, back in 1989, a man named Bob Lazar claimed that he had been hired to work briefly as a researcher at a part of Area 51 called S4, which was so secretive that he and other workers were taken there in a bus with blacked out windows so they couldn't figure out the route. So he claims that in these hangars at S4, he saw flying saucers, apparently of extraterrestrial origin, and they were powered by antimatter reactors fueled by a mysterious reddish-orange substance called element 115. And that was the element I was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
I forgot what the name of it was.
I've heard of that, yes. I have heard that.
But I believe it's an actual element now. They discovered it later on, but he was talking about element 15, decade or two before it was, actually discovered. So, maybe that does give him some credibility.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes on to say the device generated a gravity wave so powerful that if you threw a golf ball in its direction, the ball would bounce off. Lazar recounted. He said the government was attempting to reverse engineer the UFOs in an effort to use the technology for military purposes. Lazar said he was fired from the job after he was caught taking friends out into the desert at night so they could watch test flights of the captured saucers. Lazar's Area 51 credentials later come into question, and you'll learn in the documentary that I believe he worked at Los Alamos Labs, and he went to college. I can't remember where he went to college, but later on when he came out with this interview in the late 80s, people tried to go back and look up his credentials, and they weren't there. So, you have two: either he totally lied about his, background and never, went to the college and never worked at Los Alamos, or people went back and just scrubbed the records of his existence.
That's again where it's you get in this weird, and this is where I'm constantly in this battle in my own mind of, you have a guy who has credibility. He's saying things that are a little too accurate to be made up, but also sound a little crazy, then gets somewhat backed up. And I don't doubt within, a shadow of a doubt that, especially back before the digital age, you could completely erase someone's existence very easily because it was literally on paper. So if the government goes in and seizes records of his college history, his credentials, everything, just literally destroys them, then you can say this person exists, and when people go to look up, be like, yep, they're right. There's no documentation here. And I was looking up element 115, and it was officially discovered in 2003 in Russia with it was a joint American and Russian scientist that's called Moscovium, so obviously based after Moscow. And you look at a lot of those radioactive elements, there's like Einsteinium, there is Neptunium, plutonium. It's all kind of named after, around where it was discovered. So they said it's extremely radioactive and has a half-life of 0.65 seconds. But it's 115 in the periodic table.
So, Bob Lazar talked about this element back in 1989, so over a decade before it was actually discovered. So that's interesting. And the larger notion of the government reverse engineering equipment, I definitely think they probably if they capture an enemy fighter jet, like an enemy Russian fighter jet, they're reverse engineering it.
100%.
If aliens do exist and we do have their spacecraft, I mean, it would make sense that they would try to reverse engineer it to get technology from it that's probably far, far advanced than anything we have.
Yeah, and it's a matter of, are we capturing it or are we working with some sort of species?
Right.
And there's that whole thing going. And do you talk about that at all?
I believe I do.
Okay, then I will wait because I have comments on that.
Okay, so that's the first.